Ladies.
Oh, how it mirrored the scene at the beginning, remember? Wow. Finally, ladies.
To apologize.
Right.
I'm your mother.
Oh god, I just realized that I forgot to change my lights from green to red. Well, now you know that before this I filmed Encanto. Anyways, I'm too lazy to change it. I'm already filming, so fuck this. So here we are, a perfect full circle moment, right? Because remember how the aunties relentlessly share their opinions about, you know, how she looked, who she took after, all of that. Well, forget that. Because this time, those voices aren't there to dictate her identity. No. Now they're just happy that she and her mother have found their way back to them. The shift is subtle, but is everything, and is also the reason why I love my job. Seeing these moments in real life, like not in a magical bamboo forest, but during a therapy session, is quite magical. This is no longer about control or expectations, it's about presence, plain and simple. And then there's Wu, who has always been the central force of power in the family. This time, she doesn't reach for Mei first, she reaches for Ming, you know, like her daughter. And instead of being the cold, distant authority figure, she does something shockingly simple yet profound. She hugs Ming. This is the first time we've seen Ming truly let go, physically expressing her sadness through tears that are not anger-induced. That alone is massive. She spent her entire life suppressing her emotions, remember, controlling every possible variable, and now she's finally allowing herself to be held, to be emotionally contained in a moment of raw vulnerability. It's not just a moment of comfort, okay? It's an undoing of years of repression. And then there's Wu's response that fills my little heart with joy. She says, there's nothing to apologize for. I'm your mother. So much yes. It's one of those sentences packed with layers of meaning. I mean, this is where we can see the difference between Ming's side of the family and Jin. Jin, even though he doesn't speak that often, was able to launch himself into a bit of a speech to encourage and teach Mei. In Ming's family, it seems that the type of vocabulary needed to express complex or nuanced emotions might be lacking. Therefore, the words used are minimal. The way I see it, Wu is saying that Ming never needed to carry this guilt in the first place, and that she's sorry she placed it on her to begin with. That the love between them was always there, even if it was buried beneath control and fear. It can also be a gentle way of acknowledging that she failed to show up as the mother Ming needed, that perhaps if she'd had the chance, she might make different choices. But nevertheless, this is her imperfect way of making amends. And I particularly love it because very often in movies, especially cartoons, there are moments when characters start these incredibly deep monologues and all of a sudden seem to possess the wisdom of hundreds of generations, even though they were used as a comedic relief just 5 minutes ago. That is highly unrealistic, and I love that Turning Red instead keeps it 100%, because there's a lot left unsaid here. There's a lot of imperfection, there's a lot left to heal, to acknowledge, to argue about, but that's the beauty of it. This moment marks the beginning of the healing process, not its completion. And to be honest, not everyone has the vocabulary to spell out their regrets, but love can still be communicated in other ways if we're willing to listen. This moment also marks Wu's transformation, not just in how she treats Ming, but in how she now approaches Mei. For the first time, her expression softens when she looks at her granddaughter, and for the first time, her expression doesn't scare the living shit out of me. There's no judgment, no cold evaluation, just a blessing. It's almost a passing of the torch somehow. The implicit message here is you are free to make your own choices from now on. So this isn't just Mei's victory, I would say. It's the first time an elder in the family has actively supported change instead of resisting it. Please acknowledge the huge progress there. And that shift is clear when the aunties prepare to walk through the mirror. There's no coercion, no warnings about what might happen if they don't go through it. One of them even protests, saying, so that's it, Mei gets to keep her panda. But another responds simply with, it's her life. Now, of course, the vast majority of absolutely normal people would look at that brief exchange and perhaps chuckle. But I look at that line and I see how it represents the moment the cycle of generational trauma is truly broken. Because hear me out, okay? Now, choice exists. I know, right? Unbelievable. Exactly the way San Yi, their ancestor, intended. No one is being forced to repress who they are, and no one is being forced to embrace it either. The older generation is still choosing to let go of their pandas, but this time it's a decision made without fear, and it's an individual decision. It's a choice, and that's why the process looks so different. The first time Mei tried to separate from her panda, it was agonizing. It felt like she was being ripped apart. I mean, it made me bawl my eyes out for the love of whatever higher power you believe in. But now when Ming and the others step through that mirror, there's peace. The pandas don't resist this time. They seem happy. They seem content at least to go get some well-deserved rest in their bamboo reservation. Because this time the separation isn't an act of self-rejection. It's an act of self-acceptance, and most importantly, it's a choice. The older generation isn't erasing a part of themselves out of shame or pressure. They're simply making a choice that aligns with who they are. And that's what real healing looks like, by the way. It's not about forcing everyone to be the same. It's about making space for difference, for individual paths, and for new ways of being. It's not like their pandas don't exist anymore. It's just that different paths lead to different rules. Their pandas might represent something very different for them compared to what it represents for Mei. And I love that the writers made the decision to separate them from the pandas, because it's almost like a confirmation that there's no right or wrong choice when it comes to what you want to do with those parts of yourself, as long as it's your choice.
No.
Oh,
Ming, please. Just come with me.
not today, Satan. No.
I'm changing, Mom.
Yes.
I'm finally figuring out who I am.
Oh, Mei, I'm so proud of you.
But I'm scared it'll take me away from you.
Me too.
Very many important moments happening here. So once Ming goes through the mirror, we see how her old biases, fears, and worries take over. Her conditioning tries to take some control back, as it's normal, but this time Mei is ready to stand up for herself. She doesn't just tell her mother she's changing. This time she claims it as a truth she no longer needs permission for. And that's why this time she doesn't get angry or impulsive when asserting herself. This time she channels vulnerability. She breaks her own emotional pattern and reveals the fear that has been quietly looming over the entire movie. The fear that by choosing herself, by choosing independence, she will lose the love of her mother. The same way that happened between Ming and Wu. That's the real core of generational trauma. It's not just about control, it's about the fear of abandonment that control tries to desperately prevent. Now, Ming also breaks her pattern, because for the first time, instead of dismissing or correcting Mei, instead of going into fixing mode, Ming actually listens and empathizes. She just hears her daughter, and when she tells Mei, I see how hard you are on yourself, she's finally acknowledging the pressure that she has unknowingly passed down. And this is where I really have to commend the writers, because they gave us such an incredible moment of healing when it comes to generational trauma. The moment when the parent actually takes responsibility, not just for their past mistakes, but for the patterns they have unconsciously handed down. And that's when we realize Mei didn't want her mother approval. She wanted her mother's validation all along. And her mother is able to finally give that validation because she's finally able to see how she has passed down her behaviors to her daughter, because she herself does it. She's just finally ready to admit it. So when she stops trying to pretend her daughter's behaviors exist in a vacuum and doesn't know where she got it from, that's when she's able to stop focusing on defending herself and instead switch to hold herself accountable. Because here's the truth. You're human. As a parent, as a child, as a partner, or as a sibling, whatever role you have, it doesn't matter. You're still a human and you will make mistakes. I don't care who you are. The point is not for you to never make mistakes, though. The point is to make sure that even when you unconsciously make mistakes, you recognize the importance of intent versus impact. And when the impact doesn't match your intent, apologizing is vital to facilitate healing. That's what usually misses a lot when it comes to healing generational trauma and depicting it. Unfortunately, the child can initiate it, sure, but it needs the other party to take accountability over their mistakes, or more accurately, to take responsibility for the impact they caused for that healing to actually happen. It's like accidentally stepping on someone's foot and refusing to apologize because you intended to walk straight, you know? You see how it becomes ridiculous when we put it in other contexts? Now, we get to the most powerful line in the entire movie. Ming saying, "Don't hold back for anyone." There is so much weight behind those words, because this isn't just about Mei, it's about Ming too. It's about the parts of herself that she had to hold back to be accepted, to be the daughter her mother wanted, to maintain the illusion of control. In telling Mei not to hold back, she is indirectly telling her, don't become me. She's giving Mei permission to break the cycle in a way that she never could for herself. But here's the most important subtext. She's also acknowledging that at times, Mei might have to fight against her too. That's what real parenting is, by the way. It's not about pretending you will never be a source of conflict or misunderstanding. It's about preparing your child to stand up for themselves, even when it means standing up to you. Ming doesn't say it explicitly, but in this moment she's telling Mei, I have my biases. I have my flaws and my existing conditioning. I will not always understand you, and you may have to fight me for your truth, but this time I'll welcome and respect your fight. And that, ladies, gents, and non-binaries, that is how the generational trauma cycle actually breaks. A round of applause, everybody. This is what I'm talking about. Come on. Not just because one person refuses to repeat it, you see, that's not enough, unfortunately, when it comes to generational trauma, but because the person who was enforcing it acknowledges their role and lets it go. That's what makes a change. And that's truly the test of parenting, isn't it? Learning to let go. Ming has spent Mei's entire life believing that keeping her close, keeping her safe, keeping her controlled was the ultimate form of love, of safety. But now she's faced with the truth she can't ignore. Her role will be shrinking. Not because she has failed as a mother, but because she has done a great job at it. That's what your child growing up looks like. The moment she recognizes this, she has two choices. She can tighten her grip, fight against the inevitable, and risk pushing Mei away entirely, or she can accept that love is not measured by proximity, that Mei's independence is not a rejection of her, but a natural evolution of their relationship. And that's what makes this moment so profound. She's finally learning that parenting isn't about keeping your child tethered to you, it's about preparing them to walk away with confidence, knowing they're loved no matter how far they go, and learning to balance the continuous worry and panic you will feel as a parent. Letting go doesn't mean losing them or be in a constant state of anxiety. It means trusting that what you've built together is strong enough to withstand the distance. Oh, hello, ancestor.
I'm not going to regret this. Am I?
I mean, I don't know. You're really walking uncharted territory. So, you see, it will be up to you to figure out rules, boundaries, the pros, the cons. Welcoming your roots.
I'm Malin Lee, and ever since I turned 13, life's been a lot.
This final scene is a masterclass in integration of tradition with modern times, of autonomy with connection, and of past with present.